She walked through the dusty street with her shawl held close, its faded threads brushing her fingers like a memory she did not dare let go. The morning sun lay low over the rooftops, turning the dirt road into a pale ribbon beneath her boots. Voices followed her, quiet at first, then sharper. "There she goes again," someone muttered. Another whispered, "Poor thing still hanging around town." She kept her head down, though her shoulders tensed at every passing word. She tried to breathe steady, but shame clung to her like grit on her skin. Two women near the well pretended not to stare as she passed, yet their voices carried plainly in the thin morning air. "Her sister sure moved on fast," one said. "Can't blame the man for choosing better," the other replied. The words hit her like small stones, each one landing where old bruises still lived. She held the shawl tighter, feeling the soft edge against her palm. Her mother had stitched it long before the town learned to laugh at her. She wished she could disappear into the barns beyond the hill, but she kept walking because stopping would only feed their talk. Her sister's name floated through a doorway as two men loaded crates. "Pretty thing," one said. "Wedding's tomorrow. Town's lucky to celebrate real beauty." The second man chuckled, glancing toward her. Shame the other one never measured up. Their laughter rolled out onto the street, catching her mid-step. Her breath shook, but she did not turn. She simply walked on, feeling the words trail her like a shadow she could not outrun. The dirt shifted under her boots as she headed toward the mercantile, though her thoughts scattered like dust in a gust of wind. Inside the mercantile, she moved quietly between shelves, hoping no one would speak to her. But the owner's wife stepped out from behind the counter with a smile that carried more pity than kindness. "Your sister must be thrilled," she said. "Big weddings bring joy to a whole town." She nodded, avoiding the woman's eyes. "I'm just here for flowers," she murmured. The woman leaned closer. "It's good you're holding up. Folks say heartbreak hits hard when a man chooses another." Heat rushed to her face. "I should get going," she whispered. She paid quickly and hurried outside, where the open sky felt easier to breathe beneath. The breeze picked up along the street, stirring her shawl as she walked. Across the way, a pair of teenagers leaned against a post, their voices low but sharp. "She lookin' for scraps again?" one asked. The others snorted. No wonder he left her. Man wants a wife, not a burden. She kept moving, though her throat tightened. A wagon rattled past, carrying her sister's wedding decorations, white ribbons, polished lanterns, and bright flowers that caught the sun like tiny sparks. A woman seated beside the driver pointed at her and laughed softly. She pressed a hand against her shawl, steadying her breath. She wished for silence, even if only for a minute. At the far end of town, she paused near the livery, trying to let her heartbeat settle. A horse shifted in its stall, and the soft thud of hooves brought a moment of calm. Then she heard footsteps behind her. "You all right?" a man asked. She turned to see the quiet cowboy who rarely spoke to anyone. His hat shaded his eyes, but she sensed sincerity in his voice. "I'm fine," she said. He studied her face. "Town's loud today." She forced a small nod. "They've plenty to talk about." He hesitated, then said, "Talking don't make it true." She looked away. "It doesn't stop the hurt." The cowboy tipped his hat. "Didn't say it did." For a moment, the street felt still, as if his presence softened the noise behind her. As she stepped past him, the noise of town life returned, boots scraping, doors slamming, voices rising in casual cruelty. She kept walking, but the cowboy's calm words lingered. Near the boarding house porch, two older men rocked in their chairs. One leaned forward and said, her fiancé barely waited a month before switching sisters. The other laughed. "A man's got sense. Beauty wins." She stopped, unable to help it. The men looked at her without shame. "You best hurry home," one added. "Wedding crowd don't need sad faces." Her breath trembled, and she turned away, heading down the last stretch of road. Behind her, laughter rose again. "Wasn't good enough to be loved," one said. The words cut deeper than any before. She gripped her shawl, feeling the fabric shake in her hands as the sky dimmed, and the first crack in her spirit opened quietly inside her. She walked the long road toward the church with the small wrapped gift held carefully in her hands. Dust lifted around her boots as the morning breeze pushed across the valley. Her family had told her she had to show respect, though every step felt like walking toward a fire she knew would burn her. Her sister's laughter floated faintly from the hilltop house behind her, bright and sharp, reminding her she had no choice but to keep going. When she reached the churchyard, two women stood near the steps, their voices quick and eager. One whispered, "She actually came." The other smirked, "Look at that dress. Poor thing must not own a mirror." She hesitated at the edge of the crowd, gripping the gift tighter. A man nearby nudged his friend. "Reckon she's hoping he'll change his mind?" His friend shook his head. "He traded up. Everyone knows it." Her sister spotted her from the doorway, bright in a lace gown that shimmered under the lanterns hanging from the porch beams. "You're late," her sister said. "Try not to draw attention." She nodded quietly. "I brought something for you." Her sister eyed the gift as if it were a stray animal. "If it's like the things you usually make, don't show it yet. People talk." She swallowed hard. "It's simple, but it's thoughtful." The bride rolled her eyes. "Simple is your specialty." Inside the church, warm lantern light washed over rows of polished benches. She found a seat near the back, hoping people would forget she existed. Instead, they turned openly, whispering behind raised hands. A woman in front of her said, "She should have stayed home." Another replied, "Her being here ruins the mood." A man farther up added, "She still looks like she's waiting on him. Sad, really." She lowered her gaze to the worn boards beneath her feet. The pastor called the room to settle, but the whispers remained. Her former fiancé stood near the altar, hands folded behind his back. His eyes brushed over her briefly, empty of the warmth they once held. She shifted, unable to steady her breathing. The ceremony began. Words were spoken about love, loyalty, and good beginnings. Each vow tightened something inside her chest. When the pastor invited them to exchange gifts, her sister called out loudly, "My dear sibling brought one too." Murmurs rippled across the room. The bride gestured sharply.
"Go on then," she said.
Her legs felt stiff as she stepped forward. She held the small gift out with both hands, the paper neat but plain. "It's something I made for you," she said softly. "A keepsake. For the new home you'll have together." Her former fiancé took it with a dramatic sigh. "Handmade again," he said. "Of course." Laughter stirred. He peeled back the wrapping and held up the small embroidered cloth. "What is this?" "A table piece." She nodded. "For your kitchen table. I stitched your initials." He cut her off with a short, mocking laugh. "Stitched? That's it." Some guests chuckled. "This is pitiful," he said, turning it so the crowd could see. "You always did like little scraps." Her sister rested a hand on his arm, smiling triumphantly. "Bless her heart," she said. "She tries." Color drained from her face as the room filled with low, cruel amusement. She whispered, "It took weeks." He shrugged. "Then it was a waste of time." Someone near the front snickered. "Even her gifts get rejected." Another voice added, "She still can't let go." Her sister leaned close to her and murmured, "You should sit before you ruin the ceremony." The cowboy stood near the back wall, half-shadowed by the lantern light. He did not move, but his eyes followed every word, every tremble in her hands. She met his gaze for just a second, and it steadied her breath, but only for a moment. The groom placed the cloth aside, as if it carried dust. "We'll find some use for it," he said to the crowd. "Maybe for the dog." More laughter followed. She stepped backward slowly, trying not to let her voice crack. "I only hoped." Her sister cut in. "You hoped for too much." The groom added, "Best thing you can do now is stay out of our way." The walls seemed to close around her. Lanterns swayed lightly from the rafters, as if the building itself breathed with disapproval. She backed through the aisle, murmurs brushing her like cold wind. "Shouldn't have come," someone said. "Embarrassing," another muttered. A third added, "She never was enough." Her vision blurred. The cowboy took one step forward, as though ready to reach her, but he stopped when she turned away. Her hands shook violently around the empty space where the gift had once been. She pushed open the church doors, letting the bright noon light strike her eyes. Outside, the air was warm, yet she felt frozen. The sky stretched wide above her, but she saw nothing except the memory of their laughter. "Not good enough," she whispered, though the words barely left her lips. Behind her, the crowd roared with cheer as the ceremony moved on without her. She ran down the steps, the dust rising around her feet like a veil. The cowboy stepped out onto the church porch, watching her disappear down the road. She did not look back. In that moment, she believed she had no place left in the world at all. She moved down the dirt road with slow, unsteady steps, her breath tight as the evening wind brushed past her. Dust clung to the hem of her dress. The sky carried a fading orange glow, but she barely saw it. Her eyes stayed on the ground, as if the earth itself might swallow her humiliation if she stared hard enough. Bootsteps thudded lightly behind her before a low voice broke the silence. "Ma'am, you steady there?" She lifted her head just enough to see the approaching horse. The quiet cowboy from the wedding sat atop it, reins loose in his hand, his posture calm. The horse snorted gently as it slowed beside her. She forced out a weak answer. "Please, just keep riding." His voice remained soft. "Sun's dropping fast. Roads get colder after dark." He studied her shaking hands. "You safe to walk that far?" "I'm fine." She tried to step faster, but her knees wobbled. "I don't need anyone seeing me after all that." He dismounted with one smooth motion. Dust swirled around his boots as he walked beside her. "Not trying to crowd you. Just making sure you don't fall over." She kept her gaze fixed on the dirt. "I said I'm fine." "Then take this," he said, holding out a small tin. "Water helps on long roads." Her pride stung. "I don't want pity." "Ain't pity," he replied. "Just manners." She hesitated, then took the tin with trembling fingers. The water cooled her throat, easing the ache that had settled there since the church doors closed behind her. She handed the tin back without a word. He fastened it to his saddle. "You walked out of there like someone carrying too much weight." She swallowed. "Someone like me should have never gone." He shook his head. "Someone like you deserved better." His words unsettled her. Kindness sounded foreign, like a tune she had forgotten long ago. She wiped her cheek quickly, hoping he hadn't seen the tear she missed. But he had. He stepped a little closer, voice still low. "No one should speak that way to a woman bringing a gift from her own hands." Her steps faltered. "You saw that?" "Every word," he said. "And it weren't right." She hugged her arms tightly around herself. They laughed like it was nothing. "It weren't nothing," he answered. "Not to you." She let out a shaky breath. "My sister always liked seeing me embarrassed." Today she got what she wanted. "Family shouldn't break a person." His jaw tightened slightly. "Family ought to stand with you." "Well, mine doesn't." Her voice cracked despite her efforts. "They told me I had to go. Said it was the polite thing." "Polite," she repeated bitterly. He waited a long moment before speaking again. "So, where are you headin'?" She brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "Nowhere. Just away from the church." "What about home?" A soft laugh escaped her, thin, tired, almost hollow. "Home? That place hasn't felt like one in years. They'll be happier if I stay gone tonight." The cowboy looked toward the darkening horizon, then back at her. "You got a long road with no lantern, no coat, and no supper." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "My ranch sits a few miles west. Ain't much, but there's food, a roof, and work if you need it." She froze. "Work." "Simple things," he explained. "Feed in stock. Help in with small chores. Honest pay." She shook her head quickly. "You barely know me." "Don't need to," he said. "Saw enough back there to know you deserve a fair chance." Her eyes filled again. "Everyone thinks I'm a burden." "I don't." She stepped back, overwhelmed. "You're kind, but kindness usually has a cost." "Not mine," he replied. Fair work for fair pay. Nothing else. The horse nickered softly, as if urging her to answer. The cowboy loosened the strap on the saddle and pulled down a spare set of reins hanging from the back. He held them out. Got a second horse tied to the fence near here. Thought I might need it if someone from town needed help getting back. His eyes softened. Seems like that someone turned out to be you. She shook her head again, torn between fear and hope. I don't know if I can trust anybody. Then trust the road, he said calmly. It'll get you to my ranch same as anywhere else. No tricks, no pressure. Just a place to land for a while. She stared at the reins. The leather looked worn but strong, steadier than her trembling life. The chill wind brushed her back, nudging her toward a decision. You're sure? She whispered. He nodded once. Positive. She took a long breath, searching his face for any sign of deceit. She found none. Only patience, only steady quietness, only a man offering something she'd never been given freely. Choice. Her hand rose slowly, fingers brushing the reins. She hesitated, then finally closed her hand around them. The cowboy gave a small nod.
Good.
The horse is just up the trail. The weight in her chest softened, not gone, but gentler, as she followed him toward the waiting horse. Behind her, the town lights flickered like distant memories fading into the night. Ahead lay a road she had never expected to take. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't walk it alone. The ranch sat beyond a stretch of rolling hills, touched by the evening's gold light. Fences ran along the open fields, and a soft wind moved through the tall grass. When the cowboy led her through the gate, she stepped quietly beside him, unsure if she belonged there at all. This place is large, she murmured, her hands tightening around the reins. It's quieter than most expect, he replied. His voice held the same steady calm she remembered from the road. Work's simple. Days run long. Nights run peaceful. She glanced toward the barn, where two older ranch hands lifted hay bales with practiced ease. Are you sure you want me here? He nodded as he tied his horse. Work's honest. And you need steady ground beneath your feet. That's reason enough. Her breath wavered, but she followed him. Inside the barn, dust floated through lantern light. The warm scent of horses wrapped around her, oddly comforting. One of the ranch hands, broad-shouldered, with silver threading his beard, looked up. So this the young lady you spoke of? He asked, smiling. The cowboy gave a single nod. She'll be helping round the place. The man wiped his hands on his worn trousers and walked over. Name's Harris. Been here near all my life. Don't fret none. We ain't hard to please. Another hand, thin as a rail but bright-eyed, leaned on a pitchfork. Name's Boone. If he's the quiet one, he said, pointing his chin toward the cowboy. I'm the talker. You'll get used to us. Their kindness made her shift her boots awkwardly. Thank you, she whispered. I hope I can be useful. You will be, Harris said. Everyone starts somewhere. The cowboy motioned her toward the stalls. First task's easy. Feed the horses. Boone'll show you how. Boone guided her to the grain bins. A good horse knows when someone's nervous, he said. Just move slow. Let Em hear your voice. She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she scooped the grain. When she poured it into the first trough, the horse nudged her arm gently. The touch startled her, but not in a frightening way, more like a reminder that gentleness still existed in the world. Boone chuckled. See? Already likes you. Harris called from behind her. Cowboy said you had a long walk yesterday. Don't push yourself too hard. She forced a small smile. Walking's easier than other things. Neither man questioned her further. She felt grateful for that. Later, outside, the cowboy stood beside a pile of water buckets. You'll carry these to the troughs, he said. Not heavy once you learn balance. She lifted one with both hands, but the weight tipped forward, nearly slipping from her grip. He stepped closer, not to take it away, but to steady her wrist. Shift it toward you, he said quietly. Let it rest against your hip. She adjusted, surprised at how much easier it felt. There, he said. Told you. Balance. Their eyes met briefly before she lowered hers to the dust. "Thank you," she whispered. He stepped back to give her space, allowing her to try again. She carried the next bucket more confidently, the soft crunch of dirt beneath her boots strangely reassuring. As the sun dropped lower, the ranch grew quieter. Harris hammered new planks into a fence. Boone gathered tools. The cowboy checked a young horse with a bandaged leg, kneeling beside it with a soft murmur. She paused, watching him. His voice was low, almost tender, as he ran a hand down the horse's trembling flank. Boone walked up beside her. "He talks more to animals than people," he said with a grin. "But don't mistake that for coldness. Man's heart steady as stone, just hidden deep." She kept her gaze on the cowboy. "He helped me," she said softly, without expecting anything. "That's how he works," Boone replied. "Not for show. Not for debt. Just fair." Her chest tightened in a way she couldn't quite name. After supper, simple beans, bread, and a quiet table, Harris leaned back in his chair. "You did well today," he said. "Better than you think." She folded her hands. "I didn't do much." "You did honest work," he replied. "That counts." The cowboy stood, taking his hat from the hook. "Tomorrow'll be easier. New things usually are after the first day." She looked down. "I'm not used to places being calm." "That'll change," he said. "If you let it." His words lingered long after he stepped outside. She followed slowly, standing on the porch as the sky deepened into shades of violet. Crickets hummed. Lanterns flickered. A small breeze carried the smell of earth and hay. For the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. Harris and Boone said their goodnights and headed toward their quarters. The cowboy walked the fence line alone, checking every post with the quiet determination she'd seen since she arrived. She watched him for a moment, then looked toward the barn, the fields, the soft lights glowing from the house. Her breath escaped as a whisper, barely carried by the wind. Maybe I can belong somewhere after all." The words surprised her, but they felt true. And for the first time since her world shattered, the night didn't feel so cold. The morning sun spread soft gold across the ranch yard as she stepped out with a small list in her hand. The cowboy tightened a strap on his saddle and glanced toward her. His quiet nod carried more care than words. She held the list close, steadying her breath before riding into town for supplies. The air was cool, the sky pale blue, and dust rose in slow curls beneath her horse's hooves. When she reached town, the street fell into that same uneasy hush she had come to fear. Lanterns hung from wooden posts, their glass catching the light like watchful eyes. A few men leaned against the saloon rail, pretending not to stare. Two women near the well paused mid-conversation. One of them whispered, "She moved in with him, you know." The second laughed lightly. "After the wedding shame? Can't blame her for clinging to the first man who'd have her." She lowered her gaze, wishing she could disappear into the dust. The general store sat ahead, its wooden sign creaking gently in the breeze. She pushed the door open, hearing the familiar bell above her. The shopkeeper, Mr. Dallin, looked up from behind the counter. His smile was thin but kind. "Morning," he said softly. "Need supplies for the ranch?" "Yes," she answered, trying to steady her voice. "Just flour, some rope, a tin of oil, and feed if you have any." "Got it all," he replied. "How are you holding up?" Her hands tightened around the folded list. "I'm fine." His eyes softened. "Town's been talking again. You don't need to take it to heart." She swallowed hard. "They always talk." From outside, laughter rose, sharp, pointed. She stiffened. Through the window, she saw three women staring at her from the porch. One cupped her hand around her mouth. "Reckon she thinks livin' on that ranch makes her important," the woman called. "Or desperate," another added. "Some women never learn their place." Her cheeks warmed with shame. Mr. Dallin paused his rapping and shook his head. "Folks forget their manners real easy. You just keep on your path." She nodded silently. The doorbell jingled again. Her sister stepped inside, the same confident sway in her walk she had shown at the wedding. A fancy white ribbon lay across her hat, and her dress was trimmed with lace that shimmered like it had been chosen for attention alone. Well, her sister said, her voice sweet as syrup yet sharp as wire. Didn't know you'd be out today. She kept her eyes on the counter. Just getting supplies. Her sister moved closer, lowering her voice. People are saying you rushed to that ranch out of loneliness. They're worried you'll embarrass yourself again. She breathed slowly, refusing to break. What they say doesn't matter. Oh, it matters, her sister smiled. This town thrives on stories. Yours just happens to be the saddest. Mr. Dallin cleared his throat. Ma'am, maybe it's best you leave her be. Her sister turned her sharp gaze on him. I'm only helpin'. She's always needed guidance. She's doing fine on her own, he replied, wrapping the last bundle firmly. Her sister approached the counter, close enough to crowd her. You really think that cowboy wants you there? A man like him? People are saying he took you in from pity. That must be hard. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept them at her sides. He's been kind. Her sister laughed. Kind doesn't mean interested. The words stung deeper than the gossip outside. She gathered her breath and stepped back. I should go. Mr. Dallin pushed the supplies toward her. You take care now. And don't pay attention to what folks think they know. She thanked him with a quiet nod, then carried the bundles outside. The sunlight felt harsher, the dust thicker. The women near the porch stopped talking as she walked past, their eyes hungry for something to pick apart. One said loudly, she must think he'll marry her next. Another replied, men like him don't marry leftovers. Her throat tightened. She secured the bundles onto her horse, fighting the urge to flee before she broke in front of them all. Hoofbeats approached from behind. Her sister's wagon rolled by slowly, wheels crunching over gravel. Her sister leaned forward with a bright smile for the crowd, but not for her. Bless her heart, she said loudly. Some people just can't accept when they've lost. The women laughed, and the sound followed her like burrs clinging to cloth. She mounted her horse without looking back and rode toward the ranch, every whispered word clinging to her like dust on boots. By the time she reached the wide rolling fields, her breath had grown uneven. The quiet cowboy stood near the barn, loading hay into the loft. He watched her approach, his eyes narrowing slightly as he noticed her trembling hands. He walked toward her, voice low. Town give you trouble? She dismounted slowly. Nothing new. He took the bundles from her saddle and set them down gently. Trouble is still trouble. She tried to steady her voice. They talk about things that aren't true. Let 'em, he said. Words don't change who you are. Her shoulders sagged. But they break me anyway. He studied her face for a long, quiet moment. The wind stirred dust around their boots, and the sky grew softer with the coming evening. They don't get to decide your worth, he said. Not a single one of them. She looked away, blinking fast. It's hard to ignore. I know, he murmured. But you don't have to face it alone. His steady presence eased the shaking in her hands. She hadn't known how much she needed someone to stand beside her until that moment. The ranch felt different now, safer, warmer, because he made space for her pain without judgment. As the sun dropped low, casting long shadows across the barn, he stepped a little closer, not touching her, just standing solid and sure. And for the first time in her life, she felt like someone was willing to walk beside her, even when the world tried to push her down. You said. Morning light spilled across the ranch yard as she stepped out of the small bunkhouse, brushing dust from her skirt. The cowboy waited near the corral, tightening a saddle strap. His calm presence had become a steady part of her days. He nodded once. Ready to learn something new? She hesitated. If you think I can. You can, he said, handing her the blanket. Set this on first. Smooth it out. She moved slowly, placing the blanket on the mare's back. Her hands shook just a little. He watched without judgment, stepping closer only when she paused. You ain't huttin' her, he said gently. Horses feel intention. She glanced at him. Mine's uncertain. Still better than cruelty, he replied. Try again. She smoothed the blanket, feeling the mare breathe beneath her fingers. The cowboy handed her the saddle next. It was heavier than she expected, and she struggled to lift it high enough. He didn't take it from her. Instead, he placed one steady hand under the edge. "Lift with your legs," he said quietly. "Not your fear." She tried again, and this time the saddle settled onto the mare's back. A small success rose inside her, warm and unfamiliar. He stepped back.
"There.
"Told you you could." A soft smile touched her lips. "Thank you for trusting me with this." "Trust comes easy with folks who try," he answered. She fastened the straps, and he checked them with a practiced touch. Soon they were riding through the open field, tall grass brushing their boots. The wind lifted her hair, and the mare's steady rhythm eased the tightness inside her chest. "This feels," she searched for the right word. "Free," he offered. She nodded. "Like I'm not someone to laugh at." He looked ahead, jaw set. "They were wrong to treat you that way." Hearing it spoken aloud made her throat tighten, but she kept riding, letting the skies stretch wide around her. A few days later, as she carried feed toward the barn, a small voice called out, "Miss, wait." She turned to see a boy of maybe 7 running toward her, dust kicking up under his boots. He clutched a folded paper. She knelt slightly. "Are you lost?" "No, ma'am," he said, shy but smiling. "I brought you this." She unfolded the paper carefully. It was a crayon drawing, her beside a horse, the sun big and bright overhead. She blinked back a warm sting. "You drew this?" "Yes, ma'am. My pa said you helped the horses. I think that's real nice." She touched the corner of the drawing. "Thank you. Nobody's given me something like this before." He grinned. "You're the nice lady." Then he ran off toward a waiting wagon. She watched him go, heart lifting in a slow, quiet way she hadn't felt in years. Later that evening, dark clouds rolled in from the west. Wind shook the barn roof, and thunder growled across the land. She carried a lantern toward the tool shed to close it before the storm worsened. Lightning flashed, bright and sudden. The thunder that followed cracked so loudly she gasped and dropped the lantern. It clattered on the dirt, flame flickering dangerously. She backed away, breath quick and shallow. The sound, sharp, explosive, had dragged her into old memories she hated. Her chest tightened. Her hands refused to steady. Footsteps hurried toward her. The cowboy's voice came low and solid.
"Easy."
It didn't break. She tried to speak, but another rumble of thunder shook the ground, and she covered her ears, trembling. He picked up the lantern and blew out the flame. Then he turned to her, stepping close but not touching until she lifted her eyes to him. "You're all right," he said. "You're safe here." Her breath hitched. "The sound, it startled me." He nodded. "Storms do that. You ain't alone in fear." Rain began to fall, tapping fast against the roof of the nearby shed. She pressed one hand to her chest, trying to calm the rapid beat beneath her ribs. He held out his hand slowly, giving her time. "Come inside. Storm'll pass quicker than it sounds." She placed her shaking hand in his. His grip was gentle but grounding, like steady earth beneath a shaking world. He led her into the shed, closing the door behind them. The lantern's faint smoke hung in the air, mixing with the sweet smell of hay. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. She stared at their joined hands before he let go. "I don't feel strong." "That's 'cause strength don't shout," he replied. "Most times it whispers. You whisper brave every day." Thunder rolled again, but it didn't strike her the same way this time. His presence softened the fear, as though the storm had to fight harder to reach her. After the worst of the rain passed, they stepped back outside. The air smelled clean, the sky a dark gray wash. Water dripped from the barn roof in steady lines. Her hair clung to her face, and she brushed it back with shy fingers. He watched her quietly. "You did all right. You helped me," she said. "Folks help each other," he replied. "That's how life works when folks have sense." She looked down at the wet dirt beneath them. "I haven't had many people stand beside me." "Well," he said softly, "you got one now." The warmth of those words settled deep inside her. Not loud, not rushed, just true. As they walked back toward the bunkhouse, she felt something new rise in her, a small, growing strength shaped by gentle hands, open fields, and a man who spoke with steadiness instead of judgment. For the first time in a long while, she believed the storms inside her didn't have to last forever.
You said.
The wagon rolled down the dusty main road just as the sun lifted over the ridge, throwing long morning shadows across the town. She kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, watching the buildings pass by. The cowboy guided the reins with an easy grip, his expression calm, though his eyes kept drifting toward her every few breaths. "Town's quieter today," he said softly. She nodded. "Quieter doesn't mean kinder."
He didn't argue.
He only clicked his tongue and steered the wagon toward the general store. Boots scuffed along porches, heads turned, whispers carried on the early wind. She heard the first murmur before the wagon even stopped. "That's her, the one who ran home crying last month. She's back already? Took her long enough. Must be staying with him. Look at them sitting together." Her shoulders stiffened, but she forced her breath steady. "It's fine," she whispered. "They always talk." "They don't have to," he replied. The wagon halted, and he stepped down first, offering a steady hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was warm, steady, grounding. She stepped onto the dirt road, keeping her chin level even as a few women across the street stared openly. One of them, thin, sharp-faced, wearing a bonnet too tight around her jaw, leaned toward another woman. "Lord help that wagon. Must carry a heavy load." The women giggled. Her throat tightened, but she kept walking. Inside the general store, the air smelled of grain and old wood. Shelves creaked beneath sacks of feed. A bell rang as the door closed behind them. The woman at the counter, Mrs. Parker, paused her tallying and raised her eyebrows. "Well," Mrs. Parker said loudly, "look who decided to show her face." She kept her gaze forward. "Good morning." "Morning," Mrs. Parker replied, pretending to glance over the cowboy. "Y'all here for feed again?" 20 pounds oats, 10 pounds grain, and the salt block," the cowboy answered, voice polite. Mrs. Parker smirked at the woman beside her. "Hear that? He feeds his horses better than some folks feed themselves." A few customers chuckled. She inhaled slowly. "Is the feed in the back?" she asked. Mrs. Parker crossed her arms. "Sure is. Hope you can carry it." A few more snickers. The cowboy stepped forward, calm but firm. "I'll handle it." As he walked to the back room, she moved toward the shelves, trying to focus on the items instead of the eyes watching her. But then she heard a voice she recognized. Too familiar, too sharp. "Well, well. Look at you." Her sister stood near the doorway, dress pressed, hair pinned tightly, chin lifted like she owned half the street. Her new husband hovered behind her, awkward but silent. Her sister smirked. "Didn't expect to see you strutting through town. Folks been talkin'. They're saying you're trying to steal attention after I got married." She blinked. "Attention from what?" "You know," her sister said, glancing around dramatically. "People feel sorry for you. And now you're what? Staying with a cowboy to feel special?" A few customers leaned closer, pretending to browse. She kept her voice steady. "I'm working. That's all." "Oh, sure," her sister laughed. "Working hard, I bet." The giggles around the store grew. Heat rose under her skin, but she swallowed it down. "I'm not here for trouble," she whispered. "Just supplies." Her sister stepped closer. "Then maybe walk quieter. Folks already say you make the floorboards creak." A couple of men laughed. One woman covered her smile with a gloved hand. Her breath trembled. The humiliation pressed against her ribs, but she didn't crumble this time. Not fully. She simply looked away and picked up a small bag of nails, steadying her hands. Behind her, another voice rang out, sharp and deliberate. "You'd think she'd buy less feed," a woman near the counter said. "She eats plenty herself." The room erupted with snickers. The bag of nails slipped slightly in her hand. Her pulse raced. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she held on. She forced air into her lungs. Then boots struck the floor behind her, the cowboy returning from the supply room. He placed the stacked feed on the counter, dusting off his hands. His gaze swept the store, picking up the tension instantly. "What's going on?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Parker shrugged. Just conversation. He didn't look at her. He looked at the woman standing frozen in front of him, her shoulders stiff, her jaw trembling. He stepped closer, his voice dropping low but carrying through the room. Was someone mocking her? Silence fell immediately. Her sister lifted her chin. People can say what they want. We're all just talking. She's used to it. The cowboy's eyes shifted to her sister, steady and unblinking. Cruelty isn't conversation, ma'am. It's a choice. Her sister huffed. Oh, spare us. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood straighter, hands resting calmly at his sides. A person's size ain't a measure of worth. But mocking someone? That tells a whole lot about character. No one breathed. He continued, and if any of you think picking at her makes you bigger, it doesn't. It makes you small. The room went dead quiet. Even Mrs. Parker lowered her eyes. Her sister flushed deep red. You don't know anything about this town. Maybe not, he replied. But I know decency when I see it. And I know when it's missing. No one dared speak. He turned to her gently. You ready to go? She nodded, unable to form words. He gathered the supplies, holding the door for her. As she stepped out, whispers exploded behind them. Shocked, shaken, disbelieving. She climbed onto the wagon seat, her breath unsteady. The cowboy set the feed down and climbed in beside her. She finally whispered, You didn't have to do that. He looked at her with quiet certainty. Yes, I did. The wagon rolled forward, wheels crunching over gravel, the town shrinking behind them. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel small. She felt seen. And that changed everything. You said. The town square buzzed with early evening chatter, lanterns swaying in the gentle wind. Dust rose with each footstep, and the wooden boards of the platform creaked as townsfolk gathered for the annual harvest celebration. She walked slowly beside the cowboy, her hands folded over her apron, feeling the weight of every whisper around her. Eyes followed her, sharp and curious, some malicious, some surprised. Don't let them see you tremble, the cowboy murmured. His voice was low, steady, almost a shield. She nodded, though her heart beat like a drum in her chest. At the center of the crowd, her sister stood near the bandstand, her posture perfect, dress bright and shining. She smiled at the assembled townspeople, a practiced charm that hid the sting in her eyes from her own insecurities. Well, if it isn't the girl who ran off crying months ago, her sister said loudly, voice dripping with false sweetness. Come to remind everyone that you were never wanted, never loved? A few people chuckled, and a cold flush of shame crawled up her neck. She gritted her teeth, keeping her head level, not letting the words sink too deeply. You always have a way with words, she whispered under her breath. Her sister's smile sharpened. And yet, some of us know how to keep what matters. Not everyone can say the same. She looked away, but the cowboy stepped slightly closer, his hand brushing hers without pressing, a quiet reassurance. Enough, he said. His voice was calm but carried through the square, drawing every ear. Silence fell, heavier than the summer heat. Her sister blinked. Excuse me? The cowboy's gaze swept the crowd before returning to her sister. I think the truth deserves telling. Her sister's smile faltered. Oh? And what truth might that be? He drew a deep breath. The man you flaunt as your choice, he chose you because your family offered him money. Not because of love, not because of respect. Just coins and contracts. A gasp rose from the crowd. Murmurs swirled like dust in the wind. Eyes widened, hands went to mouths, and some shook their heads in disbelief. Her sister's lips parted, words failing her. The practiced confidence cracked. She looked toward her husband, who had been silent beside her. He avoided every gaze, shifting his weight awkwardly. She froze, heart hammering, but not from shame. She blinked through tears she hadn't realized formed. Shock, not fear, gripped her. You can't, her sister finally said, voice trembling. That's not true. The cowboy held up a hand. It is. And the woman you mock, the one you've spent months trying to humiliate, she works harder than anyone here. She stands taller than anyone here, and she has more dignity in her little finger than some have in their whole bodies. The townsfolk went silent. The weight of truth sank in, pressing down like the heat of a midday sun on dry wood. Her former fiancé shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact with anyone. His betrayal lay bare before the crowd, and shame turned slowly toward the couple who had wronged her. A few women whispered, "I didn't know. I never realized." A man muttered, "Good Lord, all this time?" She felt the cowboy's hand lightly touch her shoulder. Not to reassure her, not to soothe, but to remind her she was not alone. She exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain a fraction. Her sister's hands trembled at her sides. "You can't just say that. Truth doesn't need permission," the cowboy replied. "It stands whether folks like it or not. And people here, well, they'll learn that cruelty doesn't make you strong, only small." Some heads nodded in agreement, others shifted uncomfortably under the weight of guilt. The murmur of whispers became silence, the kind that carries realization. She looked up, eyes wide, trying to process that she no longer had to shrink. That someone had spoken for her, not out of pity, but because what had been done to her deserved confrontation. "You see," he continued, "she's faced more mockery, more lies, more judgment than anyone should endure. And yet she moves forward. She lifts her head when others would stay bent. She cares for others, works for herself, and carries her spirit higher than those who tried to break it." Her sister's face burned red, pride collapsing into shame. Her husband's jaw tightened, silent and powerless. The townsfolk watched, some leaning closer, some shaking their heads in disbelief. She felt her knees weaken slightly, trembling. Not from fear, not from humiliation, but from the weight of being defended by truth. She had never imagined anyone would speak so openly for her. The cowboy's gaze met hers. Quietly, he said, "You don't need anyone else to declare your worth. You already show it. And now they know it too." She swallowed, a small shiver of relief running through her. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't answer. He only nodded, letting her feel the magnitude of what had happened. The town had been forced to see her as she truly was, strong, capable, and worthy. The crowd slowly began to disperse, some whispering in awe, others embarrassed at their own judgments. The heat of shame that had once clung to her now settled elsewhere. The truth had shifted the balance, leaving her standing in a new light. Her sister's shoulders slumped. Her husband stared at the ground. Even the town's gossipers whispered softer, cautious, unsure. She breathed in the evening air, lanterns swinging in the breeze, and felt the first real lightness in months. Trembling lingered, yes, but it was the tremble of shock and relief, not fear. She had been seen. She had been defended. And justice, however small and delayed, had arrived. The cowboy stepped beside her quietly, hand brushing her shoulder again. She looked up, eyes shining with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt whole. The wind carried the whispers of the town behind them as they walked back toward the wagon. Dust swirled around their boots, the sky fading to deep violet, and she knew that she had not only survived the cruelty, but had risen above it. And the truth had finally set her free. The sun hovered low over the rolling hills, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. She stepped out of the bunkhouse, boots crunching on the dry dirt, feeling the warm glow brush against her face. The ranch was quiet, save for the soft rustle of horses and the distant clatter of a gate swinging in the wind. "Ready to ride?" the cowboy asked, adjusting his hat. His voice carried the calm strength that had become her anchor these past weeks. She nodded, brushing dust from her skirt. "I think so." He led the way to the corral, where a pair of horses waited. One was hers, a chestnut mare with gentle eyes that now trusted her touch. The other was his, steady and sure, a companion for the ride ahead. "You've done well," he said, helping her adjust the saddle. "More than you know." Her hands lingered on the reins, feeling the familiar weight. "I'm still nervous," she admitted. "Course you are," he said, smiling faintly. "But nervousness don't mean you can't handle it. You've faced worse already." She glanced at him, considering the meaning behind his words. The town, the whispers, her sister's smirk, they all seemed smaller somehow, distant as the hills ahead. A soft neigh drew her attention to her mare. She patted the animal's neck. "I guess we're both learning," she said. The cowboy mounted beside her. "Horses teach patience. People, well, some folks take longer." They rode in silence at first, the rhythm of hooves mingling with the wind through the tall grass. Dust rose around their boots, catching the light like golden threads. She felt the tension in her shoulders loosen, letting the vastness of the open field swallow the weight of months gone by. "You've changed," he said after a while, voice carrying easily over the soft clop of hooves. "Not how folks see you, but you. You deserve better than what you had back there." She looked down at her hands on the reins, then back at him. I never thought I would." "Thought you wouldn't what?" he asked. "Thought I wouldn't matter. Not in any way that counts." He glanced at her briefly. "Matt Aaron ain't about talk or looks. It's about what you do, how you carry yourself. You've done that. You've carried yourself through fire and you're still standing." A faint wind carried the scent of hay and horses. Her chest rose and fell, the rhythm of her heart beginning to match the steadiness of the ride. "I didn't think I could trust anyone again," she said softly. "And yet here I am." "You can," he said. "Trust's earned in small steps, and you've already taken them." They reached the crest of a hill, the sun just kissing the horizon. Shadows stretched long and gentle, bathing the land in gold. She felt a strange lightness in her chest, as if the years of shame had begun to melt in the warmth. "Look at that," she murmured, gesturing toward the painted sky. "It feels like something new." "That's the start of it," he said. "Every sunset's a reminder. You get a chance to begin again." She swallowed, a quiet smile touching her lips. "I never thought I'd feel that safe." "You are," he said. "And you deserve more than fear. More than the hurt they tried to give you. More than they ever imagined." Her fingers tightened slightly on the reins, not from fear but from a steady resolve that had begun to take root. I think I can start seeing myself differently." "You should," he said, not as the girl they mocked, but as a woman rebuilt in her story. A shout came from the yard behind them. A small boy ran toward her, waving another crayon drawing. She pulled the reins, smiling softly. "Miss, look," he called, panting. She knelt slightly in the saddle. "What is it?" He held out the paper carefully. On it, she saw herself atop her mare, smiling freely, the wind lifting her hair. The sun above her was bright and golden, the hills rolling in calm lines behind. "You drew me?" she asked. "I did." "You look happy," he said proudly. "Like you really can be." She touched the corner of the paper, warmth spreading through her chest. I think I can be." The cowboy's gaze shifted from her to the drawing and back again. "See? Even the little ones notice the truth. You're more than what they tried to make you believe." The boy grinned and ran off toward the barn, leaving her alone with the sunset and the cowboy's quiet presence. She turned her gaze to him. "I don't think I fear the world anymore. Not like before." "That's good," he said. "'Cause the world, it's still out there. But you'll meet it on your terms now." She drew a deep breath, the scent of dust and hay filling her lungs, feeling strength in her chest. "I think I like the person I'm becoming." "You should," he replied. "You've earned every bit of it." They rode on together, the mare's hooves drumming in steady rhythm. The horizon glowed like fire, the sky a blend of orange and violet, stretching forever ahead. She felt the weight of the past settle behind her, light as dust in the wind. For the first time in months, she believed the world could hold something gentle, something true. And for the first time, she saw herself not as an outcast, but as a woman who had begun to rebuild her life, one careful, steady step at a time. The cowboy rode beside her, silent, steady, unshakable. She smiled again, softly, looking toward the horizon. The sun sank, casting the ranch in warm, golden shadows, and she knew she no longer feared the world that had once broken her. The sun dipped low behind the hills, spilling warm amber across the ranch. Dust floated in lazy swirls, catching the last light, and the wooden boards of the porch creaked softly under her boots. She leaned against the railing, shawl draped over her shoulders, its worn fabric carrying the weight of years she no longer felt ashamed of. The breeze carried the scent of hay, horses, and earth, a calm perfume she had come to know as home. "You're quiet tonight," the cowboy said, stepping onto the porch beside her. His hat shaded his eyes, but she could feel the steady certainty in his presence. "I'm thinking," she replied softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Thinking about everything." He nodded, shoulders relaxing against the porch post. "It's been a long road." She smiled faintly, turning her gaze toward the horizon. "It has. But I think I finally see it. All of it. The town, the gossip, even my sister. They were shadows. And the light I needed was here all along." "Glad you see that," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a softness to it that made her chest lift. "You earned it. Every bit." She let out a slow breath, feeling the warmth in her chest spread gently, like sun through morning mist. "I never thought kindness could feel like a shield," she whispered. "It can," he said. "It don't have to shout. It don't have to prove itself to the world. It just is." The mare in the corral flicked her tail, snorting softly, and the quiet sound grounded her further. She watched as the ranch hands moved about the yard, tossing hay, brushing the horses. Even they treated her differently now, nodding with respect, smiling softly, gestures that reminded her she had a place here. "You've changed," he said after a pause, voice low. "Not just how the town sees you, but you. You walk steady now. You look them in the eye without shrinking." "I'm learning," she admitted, her fingers twisting slightly in the shawl. "Learning that I can belong somewhere, that I can trust people again. That maybe I deserve it." He tilted his head toward her, eyes steady. "You do. You always did. Just didn't see it for yourself." A breeze lifted the shawl around her shoulders. She let it settle comfortably, feeling pride instead of shame. She had carried it once as a reminder of what she had lost, and now she wore it as proof of what she had gained.
Strength, dignity, choice.
"You don't have to speak," she said softly. "Your presence, it says more than words ever could." He chuckled lightly, the sound warm against the quiet evening. "Guess some things don't need saying." Her gaze shifted to the horizon again, watching the sky turn from amber to rose, streaked with violet and gold. "I never thought love could feel like this," she murmured. "Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Patient. Earned." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for her hand, brushing his fingers lightly over hers. She felt the warmth, the strength, the gentle certainty of him. She looked down, then back at him, and this time, she let him. She chose to let him. Not because she owed it, not because the world expected it, but because this moment, this simple, quiet moment, was hers. "Steady," she whispered, letting her thumb rest against his hand. "Always," he replied. His voice was soft, unshakable. The porch creaked beneath them as they shifted slightly, standing side by side. The wind stirred, rustling the edges of her shawl, and she felt a calm she hadn't known in years. The ranch was alive with quiet life, the lowing of horses, the shuffle of boots across dirt, the far-off clatter of a gate, but it felt like a sanctuary now, a place where cruelty had no hold. "You've done more than survive," he said, voice nearly lost in the wind. "You've grown. You've rebuilt. And you did it without losing yourself." Her lips curved into a small smile, the first one that felt entirely her own. "I couldn't have done it alone." "You didn't," he said, glancing at her. "But you didn't need to. You had the courage. I just helped keep the world from swallowing it all." The sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the porch, turning the sky into a canvas of gentle colors. She felt the weight of the past settle behind her, the long months of shame, whispers, and fear fading into the evening air. "I think I'm ready," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "Ready to keep moving forward." To trust, to hope, to live. You already are, he said, squeezing her hand lightly. You just needed to see it. A faint whistle came from the barn, the little boy from nearby running along the fence line, waving another drawing. She laughed softly, the sound clear and unburdened, and waved back. The cowboy smiled, watching her, the corners of his eyes crinkling ever so slightly. I think I like this version of myself, she said, voice steady, a small light in her chest. You should, he replied. It's the one you built, piece by piece, steady and true. The wind carried the scent of earth, hay, and horses around them, and the ranch felt infinite, safe, and entirely hers. She tightened her hand in his just slightly, and for the first time, she didn't feel fear. I won't hide anymore, she said softly, eyes lifting to meet his. I'll wear this, she gestured to the shawl, and whatever comes next, I'll face it. You will, he said, the certainty in his voice steady as the hills. The sun disappeared behind the ridges, leaving the sky a soft wash of violet and rose. Dust swirled in lazy circles, the ranch alive with gentle movement, and she felt the warmth of a life she had never imagined she could claim. Hand in hand, they stood quietly on the porch, watching the sky settle, and she realized she was no longer alone. She had dignity. She had safety. She had kindness. And she had chosen this moment for herself. The evening settled around them, soft, calm, and full of promise. She let herself breathe fully, letting the past fall behind her. The future stretched wide and warm, and for the first time in her life, she felt entirely free. The cowboy didn't speak. He didn't have to. And that was enough.